cost as much to hire now do. That's having a massive impact on young people. People who take on apprentices have stopped. So hair salons, for instance, have been one of the businesses that have screamed the most, that they're just not able to afford to take on new staff. And it's affecting sectors like that, hospitality. Anyone who takes on young people is going to be severely impacted. But the truth is everybody is impacted. The supermarkets have been shedding jobs. Lots of people are saying that if they're going to afford such a high wage bill, they either have to pay lower wages, stop hiring, and in some extreme cases, just stop business altogether.
Noting that you served as both Secretary of State for International Trade and former Business and Trade Secretary, how nervous are you about Tariff Day tomorrow with President Trump, Mrs. Badenoch?
I am very nervous. We wanted to have a UK-US trade deal with when we were in government. Under President Trump, we started negotiating. President Biden did not want to do any trade deals with any country. It is now imperative that we get a trade deal that deals with those, and one that deals with the sectors that are most impacted. So manufacturing, car manufacturing in particular, steel. These are industries that will be severely crippled. The car industry brings in about £8 billion in terms of exports to the US. That's something that's likely to significantly drop. If that happens, it's going to have an impact on the tax take, which means that Rachel Reeves will have to come back to other sectors for more money. We certainly don't want that.
So what should Sakir or the Labour administration be doing now as regards the possible tariffs?
Well, they should be doing everything they can to negotiate away the possibility of tariffs. A trade deal is the best way, but it has to be something significant and comprehensive, not just a deal that tinkers at the margins in easy areas. Some people will want us to have trade retaliation. That just makes everyone poorer. This is a time for significant diplomacy and showing that actually if you put tariffs on, the people who will suffer aren't just our exporters, but also the American consumer who will have to pay more.
On the subject of diplomacy, I don't know if you've had sight yet of the front page of the Daily Telegraph, but Sakir's attempts to strike a deal with the US are at risk over a row over free speech. The US State Department has issued a statement saying it's concerned about freedom of expression in the United Kingdom. This is in relation to the case of the anti-abortion campaigner in Bournemouth that you might or might not be aware of, prosecuted for holding a sign near a Bournemouth abortion clinic reading, "Here to talk if you want to." This is what the State Department has said. US-UK relations share a mutual respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. However, as Vice President Vance has said, we are concerned about freedom of expression in the UK. How accurate is that in your view?
We have freedom of expression in this country. We have free speech in this country. However, it is at risk because a lot of people are expanding the law way beyond the original intention. This is one of the problems that I saw as a minister. You and I had lots of conversations about the Equality Act, how people were interpreting it to do things that it wasn't meant to do. So I do think that we have free speech in this country. What I do not want to see is a lot of the wars that they have in the US over abortion coming to our country. We've managed for a very long time to avoid the very intense wars that they have around abortion. I think that the laws that we have around abortion in this country are good. Safe, legal and rare is what we used to say 20, 30 years ago. I think that we've found a right balance. I do, however, think that we should not be persecuting for people for expressing themselves. This is something that Parliament voted on. We had lots of votes around this issue. I remember voting against certain bits of legislation that would penalise people like that woman. But when you don't win the vote, you don't win the vote. They're free votes. But I still think that on balance, we are in a good place in our country. We should not talk the UK down. We do have freedom of expression, but it is at risk in some places if we're not paying attention. I think that my party, the Conservative Party, cares very much more about it than Labour does. And we need to make sure that we hold their feet to the fire to guarantee those rights that we've always had in the United Kingdom.
So that was an unfair prosecution of that woman in Bournemouth?
We need to make sure. I haven't looked at exactly what the details of it was.
She held a sign saying, "Here to talk if you want to."
Well, we must avoid the draconian interpretations of the law. That's one of the things that is happening. That we have laws that are in place which are decent and people are taking them to the extreme, whether it's courts, whether it's police or people who just don't understand what the law is. And we need to make sure that where the law is an ass, we change it.
Staying with President Trump, there was a suggestion in one of the newspapers on Sunday that you've banned your senior colleagues from criticising Donald Trump. Is that correct?
No, it's not correct.
What is your attitude?
It's not correct at all.
What is your attitude towards President Trump? There's no briefing of that sort at all.
So I have been very clear that the US is an ally, and I have wanted us to be clear that we need to separate the person who is in the office of the President of the United States from the country itself. There will be people who we like more than others. People will have different views on President Trump. My view is that we need to stay close to the US. They are an ally. We do not want a world where NATO is fragmented. That is very bad for our national security. We need to do what is in our national interest. Where we disagree, we should say so. And I don't mind people saying where they disagree, but I do have a problem with people just criticizing for the sake of it when they actually haven't got a concrete example of what it is that they're talking about in terms of policy. They're expressing their personal views about an individual. I haven't banned anyone from doing so, but I don't think it is right, because I say this as somebody who was in government. Having people from another country endlessly criticize your government in open is not helpful. It's what Denmark has said to J.D. Vance, for example. So we need to live by the values which we espouse. We think that diplomacy and tough talk should happen behind the scenes. We are not the commentariat. We are parliamentarians. We need to make sure that we act accordingly.
You've talked about the world. Can I take you to France, where Marine Le Pen's protégé, Jordan Bardella, is saying, and I quote, "French democracy is being executed with that decision on Marine Le Pen." Would you concur with that?
No, I would not concur with that. Where there is a ruling, people have been found guilty of an offence. I do not think that we should start undermining the institutions that helped create Western society. The rule of law and having equality under the law, where no one gets to escape consequences of their actions, is really fundamental. If we do not have this, then we become like banana republics. Now, if people believe that Marine Le Pen is being persecuted because of her politics, that's a totally different matter. But I think that the sort of rhetoric where any decision that goes against a specific political party is looked at as undermining democracy, I don't think is helpful.
The Prime Minister talked tough about immigration yesterday. You'll be aware of that, Mrs. Badenoch. The reality for many is the front page of The Sun, where we see two immigrants from Albania posting a TikTok video talking about how they paid £3,000 to cross the channel, sitting in comfortable hotel rooms, watching large-screen televisions. Is that the reality in your view?
That is the reality. And I'm not here to pretend that we got everything right on immigration. As I have said, mistakes were made. We are working to fix those mistakes from a policy perspective. What I will not have is Keir Starmer pretending that he is tough on immigration. That man opposed pretty much every single thing we tried to do to control our borders. He was campaigning to stop us from deporting foreign criminals. He showed his true colours when he was in opposition. And no amount of tough talk now and rhetoric is going to convince me that he really cares about this issue. This is someone who has always criticised immigration policy. In his past, I believe he said that immigration policy was racist, that he is somebody who does believe in open borders. So don't believe whatever he's saying now. All of the tough talk is because he knows that it's good for politics. Let's look at what he did when he had the chance to do things.
You concede that in power the Conservatives got things wrong. How would you put this issue right? How would you smash the gangs? Because I don't imagine you'd say you want to stop the boats, Mrs. Badenoch.
To be honest, I don't think that there was anything wrong with saying we should stop the boats. That's what the public wanted. That's what the British public wanted. I believe that the third country deterrence is something that needs to be done. That is why I supported the Rwanda plan. Keir Starmer scrapped it. We started that plan. We waited to make sure that we had democratic mandate to do it. We did not win that at the last election. But without it, there is no serious deterrent. Everyone who knows anything about this issue has said so, whether it's the people who have worked in Border Force, all of the people who are looking at this policy seriously know that a third country deterrent is necessary. And Keir Starmer, if he doesn't want to use Rwanda, he needs to find somewhere else. But simply pretending that if we just get an agreement with France and other European countries, things will be fine, is for the birds. He is someone who knows that France has an even bigger problem. Of course, they wouldn't mind if we took some of that off their plates. We need to do what is right for our national interest. We need a third country deterrent, but we also need to crack down not just on illegal migration, but the very large numbers that are of legal migration that are putting pressure on public services.
Last minute or so together, we also heard from the Prime Minister yesterday that he's watched that TV, the Netflix series Adolescence. What have you learnt from that, Mrs. Badenoch?
Well, I haven't watched it. I don't have time to watch anything these days, to be honest. But I have read about it.
The Prime Minister had time to watch it, Mrs. Badenoch.
Yes, well, they have. And so what I understand is that this is a fictional representation of a story that is actually quite different. And I think it's an interesting story. It certainly touches on some of the things that are happening in the world today. But it is not the biggest thing that is happening in the world today in terms of what is happening to people being radicalized on social media.
But many would say for a leading politician such as yourself not to be in tune with what a lot of people are talking about, that's almost a dereliction of duty, some would suggest. And not least as you have a child approaching their teens.
Yes, I do. So I pay attention, but I'm not going to watch every single thing that everybody's watching on Netflix. I do know what they're watching and I know what it's about. And I've given a view that it is a work of fiction that is interesting, that touches on a problem in society. But there are bigger problems such as Islamic terrorism and that kind of radicalization. And the story which it is based on has been fundamentally changed. And so creating policy on a work of fiction rather than on reality is the real issue. We have a policy, for instance, to ban mobile phones from schools for those children who are under the age of 16.
As the Prime Minister pointed out, that most schools are doing that already, as the Prime Minister...
No, they're not. That's the thing. They don't have an effective ban. They just say, don't use your phone. They don't take the phones off children. They don't lock them away. That is disrupting classes. Teachers are saying it's disrupting GCSE in particular, where it's causing the most harm. It's impacting children. That's a real thing that he needs to look at.
Local elections coming up. Why should people vote Conservative, Mrs. Badenoch?
Because Conservative councils deliver better value for money, better services, lower taxes than anyone else. I tell people, go and look at Birmingham, see what's happening there, rubbish not being collected. There are loads of other parties who have run councils and run them into the ground. Sometimes we have had councils that have failed, but if you look at the total sum, the Conservative councils are better.
All right. Nigel Farage says of you, you're lazy. You often work very hard in the afternoon for a few hours, but you don't know what hard work is. What would you say to Nigel Farage?
How would he know that? He's never even met me. How would he know that? He's just it's something he's saying to get attention, and he may want to get attention by throwing abuse at other people. I am doing everything I can to get attention by talking about what matters to your listeners, what's happening to their household bills, how their lives are getting more expensive because of bad policies that Labour is putting in place. He wants to attack the opposition. We need to make sure that the government that's running our country is doing a good job. We are the opposition and we're doing that.
And I will mention those figures again. Just one last question, though. The message doesn't seem to be getting across. The latest polling shows your share of voters dropped to 22%. It was 26% when you took over in November. Why are you not getting your message across? Are you failing, Mrs. Badenoch?
No, it went up to 26%
then?
after I took over.
Yes.
And it's gone down. What I have said with polling is that they are snapshots. We need to make sure that we do everything we can to cut through. The last opposition took 14 years to come back. The one before that, 13 years. The one before that, 18 years. I've been doing this now for 5 months. It's going to take some time. We're going to have very difficult local elections. These local elections are not going to be fun for the Conservative Party because the last time we fought them was in 2021 with Boris Johnson when there was a vaccine bounce just after COVID. So we are going to have a tough time. And people have just kicked us out of government. It takes time to rebuild trust with the public. That's what I'm doing now. And I know that will take time. There is a challenger party on the right you've just described. Of course, they want to hurl abuse at the opposition party because they want to be the opposition. We want to be the government. We've learned from the lessons we made. The Conservative Party is under new leadership. It will take time, but I know that we will cut through and we're having wins. Look at the sentencing issue that happened today, that Labour has now U-turned. That's something that we did. You know, Robert Jenrick and I spoke and I said this is an issue that he had to absolutely hammer away at. We're getting changes made. We've had changes made to the schools bill, for example. Yes, we're doing our job.
Is it tougher than you thought, being the leader of the Conservative Party?
No. I knew this was going to be very tough. And lots of people told me, don't do this, it's a poison chalice. But I care about this country, I care about my party. And if you don't get on the pitch and do everything you can to make things better, then you can't complain when they get worse.
You rest from Chris Philp, lastly. He's talking about this two-tier policing with the advice from the policing guidance councils. Do you agree that could be two-tier policing, Mrs. Badenoch?
It could be. Chris is doing a fantastic job highlighting this, and it's one of the things that we need to start fixing. We cannot have a situation where people feel there's different treatment for different groups based on certain characteristics like the ones he described.
Really enjoyed our time together. Thank you. Kemi Badenoch pointing out that Labour's hike in national insurance, employers' national insurance, will hit working people, coming up with a sum of £3,536. Kemi Badenoch, leader of the Conservative Party, thank you for your time. 9:35 LBC News headlines. Thomas Watts.
The Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, told Nick she's very nervous about the impact of US tariffs. Donald Trump has billed tomorrow as Liberation Day, with the UK expected to be among the countries hit with new levies. Water bills, energy prices and council tax are all going up at the start of what's being called Awful April. A rise in the energy price cap means gas and electricity bills are rising by about £110 a year for the average property.